Good morning, Convention, and thank you, President. And can I just start by joining with so many in congratulating you, President, on a simply excellent and fabulous address to Convention yesterday, incisive, clear, and very much across all of our issues, and showed an enormous commitment that I've seen throughout the year, and your passion for improving and advancing the interests of ASTI and our members. Congratulations again. I also want to congratulate Pádraig Curley on his achievement of becoming President-elect. Pádraig will be an excellent servant of the ASTI, and I know he will excel in every task he undertakes. And I really look forward to working with you. Congratulations again, Pádraig. On two slightly preemptive strikes here, I want to congratulate Richie Bell, who I know will be declared elected as Vice President later today, shortly. Richie is a strong and committed ASTI activist and a trade unionist who will leave no stone unturned in advancing the cause of the ASTI and its members. And also, while I am on preemptive strikes, I wish to congratulate Noelle Moran, who will be declared elected later on as Honorary Treasurer. She'll serve with honour, I've no doubt, and with distinction, and that is something that makes me very happy that in the years to come, it's clear that a top-class team has been assembled and elected and entrusted to attending to the affairs of this union. Convention, for this report, as usual, I've stripped out some central issues from among the several we face and have faced over the past year, many of which we will return to in the form of motions and debate, and have already done so this morning. Just to start with senior cycle redevelopment, as I said yesterday and again this past year, the issue that has stayed at the top of our priorities has been the senior cycle redevelopment plans, originally announced on the 29th of March by the then Minister for Education, Norma Foley TD. While welcoming some aspects of the plan at the time, since then we have sought to panel beat it into something workable and sustainable and educationally sound. And we should be mindful that we have scored some successes in that regard, ensuring that Minister Foley's initial plan to change the final assessment procedure to significantly reduce reliance on final examinations and to introduce teacher-based assessment components were dispensed with. The integrity of the examinations, built on fairness for students and trust in the system, must never change. A vigorous campaign leading to the Minister's rollback in February 2023 of her proposed plans for students to sit the Leaving Cert Paper 1 and both English and Irish at the end of fifth year was another advance that shows how decisive and coordinated action works with her colleagues in the TOI and organisations like Engrais Son and iNote, to name just two. It is important that we continue this approach, and I believe that we are still in a position to effect further change. We have achieved progress, we can achieve more progress. I won't go back over the ground that we covered yesterday, but I do want to refer to some ASTI commissioned research that we undertook during the year. As you well know, ASTI commissioned a Red Sea research and marketing company survey of our members during the year, in which we sought their views on the additional assessment components. Some 2,758 of our members took part in that survey. And the research objectives were to obtain the teachers' views on the current implementation of the Leaving Cert additional assessment components in a range of Leaving Cert subjects, and also to obtain teachers' views on the Minister for Education's proposal that there will be AACs in each subject with a minimum of 40% starting in September. I'll not delay Convention setting out the findings of the survey again here, they're in your handbooks, but there are some extraordinarily insightful comments in the open questions that I would like to share with you. Regarding stress for students and teachers, two quotes from members leaped off the page for me, and the first one said, "Stress levels for students will go through the roof completing so many additional assessment components. 40% project in every subject increases the workload on students and teachers, which will in turn increase student stress levels massively. I don't think parents or students understand the stress levels students could potentially face." On artificial intelligence, another quote that jumped up was, "The potential use of generative AI in these AACs diminishes the standard of education and learning required in all subjects. The AACs will also heighten inequality between the haves and the have-nots." Authentication of students' work is also a problem. One teacher said, "My concern is how we will manage it in the context of AI developments. Urgent guidance needed on this for all aspects of student learning." Workload came up. The increased workload, was well envisioned by a teacher who said 40% AACs would create a world of extra pressure and stress for students and teachers. Preparing and supporting students to complete the written exam is already a big mountain to climb every year. Class sizes are a major barrier. And of course, the lack of resources is a crucial issue, particularly in the area of IT. There is not enough computers in schools to make working on coursework doable. Clashes of CBA timings will now become an issue with senior coursework. "I do not know how it's going to be managed," was one of the many comments on this issue in the survey. And of course, our members didn't forget equity and the issue of widening of the social divide. AACs will benefit the better off students, and discriminate against the less well-off students was something that was uppermost in the minds of many of our members. As one teacher put it succinctly, teachers are considering leaving the profession. They're burnt out. Many are already looking for alternative careers. This is not a well thought out plan. On this topic, I don't think I have to say much more. Our members have written it for me there. They have the fingers on the pulse, and they very clearly understand what the real problems are with our senior cycle redevelopment, and we need to keep plugging to ensure that we turn it around. A quick word on junior cycle. As you know, a decade or so into the project, so to speak, there remains considerable problems with it to be ironed out. It is simply bizarre that the junior cycle profile of achievement is presented to students long after they have received their examination results. At long last, the department are looking at this, and a project is being put in place to ensure that the JCPA will be provided to students on the day of their junior cycle results. And of course, the grade bands that were mentioned here yesterday for the junior cycle have been a matter on which we in the ASTI have been voicing our concerns for several years. It was untenable that the official verdict on the vast bulk of our students is that they fall into categories that can only be described as mixed middling, with very few achieving top grades. I am delighted that after us having beat that drum for so long, the Minister announced yesterday that it's going to be addressed very soon, and we have a very clear and prescient motion on it later today on the matter. The truth is that the junior cycle results day has been far from a pleasant experience in many schools in recent years. Another fine piece of research that ASTI recently undertook was the School Leaders Workload, Wellbeing and Curriculum Change ASTI Survey of 2025. The dominant and pervasive theme throughout the findings is the unsustainable workload and the sheer volume of administrative tasks placed upon school leaders. Principals and deputy principals repeatedly mentioned the relentless stream of new initiatives, circulars and policies from the Department of Education and other agencies, leaving them feeling overwhelmed and unable to prioritise teaching and learning. Tellingly, in relation to the introduction of the new science specification in September 2025, just over half of schools have a dedicated science budget, while just under half consider the school laboratories to be well equipped. School leaders were explicit in stating that difficulties in recruiting and retaining teachers are in large part attributable to the declining attractiveness of teaching as a profession. The teaching career is widely perceived as having a heavy workload, multiple and competing role demands, and lack of a work-life balance. Two comments that particularly caught my eye in this body of work, again in the comments section, was, "I have zero work-life balance." And another, "There is a disconnect between the department expectations and the reality on the ground. Schools are floundering." And of course, a large portion of the issues I raised today in this report could be well addressed if investment in education was increased. The 2024 OECD Education at a Glance report published in September last shows Ireland languishing in last place out of 34 countries when it comes to the proportion of GDP invested in education. The proportion of GDP a country invests in its education system provides an indication of the priority given to education relative to the country's overall resources, according to the report. In 2021, the year examined in the report, Ireland invested 0.9% of its GDP in second-level education, compared to the OECD and the EU averages of 1.9%. What this means is an annual funding gap of $1,000 per second-level student between Ireland and the OECD average. They measure it in dollars, by the way. In terms of overall investment in education, primary to tertiary, Ireland invested 2.9% of its GDP compared to the OECD average of 4.9% and EU averages of 4.4%. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is shameful to see Ireland languishing at the bottom of the table of investment in education. The government must commit to closing this investment gap between Ireland and the rest of the world, and they must do it soon. Quality education is simply not possible without adequate financing. And of course, the recruitment and retention crisis in our schools is all part of the underinvestment picture too. For too long, the crisis has bedeviled second-level schools. Posts remain vacant and substitute teachers are unavailable in many instances. Schools can barely cope. We in the STI have been calling for a more fundamental approach to finally address this problem. Teaching needs to be made more attractive as a profession. There must be increased investment and a reversal of the relentless onslaught on teachers' terms and conditions that has been in train for many years. Again, the OECD report Education at a Glance 2024 found that, in real terms, teachers' salaries decreased by 6% between 2015 and 2023, at a time when they increased by 4% in most other developed countries. Increased workload and initiative overload has been the norm. A proper promotional structure has to be put in place. There must be restoration of allowances that were abolished in 2012 for new beneficiaries. Many STI members still suffer from the adjustments made to their incremental progression during the industrial dispute of 2016-17. The 2-year PME must be reduced. The move by the Minister this week whereby permanency can be achieved after 1 year rather than the current 2-year wait for the awarding of CIDs is acknowledged and is a move in the right direction. But the list goes on and on and on. I wrote recently about the 46 apartments at Boland's Mills Quarter in Dublin, which were launched at discounted rents for key workers such as Gardaí, nurses and teachers. The apartments were offered with rents that were up to 36% below market rate and were heavily oversubscribed. We've been arguing that ring-fenced affordable accommodation for key workers could be one measure that might help to alleviate the teacher recruitment and retention crisis. Now, the Minister for Education and Youth, Helen McEntee, who was here yesterday, has stated that she intends to bring forward further proposals as to how the teacher shortage can be addressed. And it's clear she needs to show more vision and imagination than we have seen in the past. The 1-year CIDs is a start, but we will see. I now want to say something about the digital rights of teachers. ASTI has been very proactive over the last year regarding the whole digitalisation and social media space, and in particular, we have a subcommittee of Standing Committee working hard to produce resources for members to combat cyberbullying of teachers. An initial poster and associated guidance on prevention will be in schools for September, while work continues on the production of detailed information on what members should do in the event of being targeted online. There is an ongoing engagement with a range of bodies so as to best inform this process, including Commissioner Mann, the Gardaí, NAPD, the JMB and the ACCS. As you will know, highly unacceptable content about teachers can sometimes find its way onto social media channels. In that regard, ASTI has engaged with the social media company TikTok. The ASTI is now able to highlight and report content that could be considered harmful or in violation of TikTok's community guidelines via TikTok's community partner channel. This channel gives the ASTI access to an escalation process in the event that the normal TikTok reporting channel has not resolved the issue for an ASTI member. And once ASTI head office deems that the issue is of a threshold that requires urgent and immediate action, I can assure you that will be done. This is one aspect of the modern world that teachers live in, and can assure you that anything ASTI can do to support members in such circumstances will always be done. I want to address the special education needs issue. In recognition of the growth in terms of policy development and the 20th anniversary of the Education for Persons with Special Education Need Act 2004, this year's ASTI Education Conference took place last October with the theme Inclusive Education in Our Schools, Challenges and Opportunities. Of course, the impacts on schools since Ireland's ratification of the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities in 2018 has been immense. Speaker after speaker at that conference identified the need for more resources in this area. I was particularly taken by Emeritus Professor of Education at UCD, Sheila Drudy, who remarked that we need more special education needs posts. She said, and I quote, "We need therapeutic and clinical supports, universal design for learning, and partnership with parents." She noted that training mainstream classroom teachers, the training teachers receive does not equip them to deal with the demands of special needs students in mainstream classes. I believe that to meet the need for inclusion in Irish classrooms, training and professional development for teachers and additional time allocation needs to be provided to ensure that these students receive the adequate attention in the classroom. It was stated that the Department of Education should have psychiatric services, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, special speech therapists, and language therapists, and they should all be employed by the department so that when the school needs them, they're just a phone call away. Indeed, it is pitiable that in recent months, parents of students with special needs felt compelled to have an overnight protest outside the Department of Education in Marlborough Street to simply secure places for their children. Every child should be supported to achieve their full potential within our education system, and the fact that there are not enough places to meet some children's needs is a national disgrace, quite frankly. Each special class needs additional dedicated teacher resources and special needs assistance, and the full range of supports, including equipment, training, grants for accommodation, assistive technology, and so on. In this area, there's so much to be done. And I believe that indeed in a context that trade unions should always be swords for social justice, I can tell you the ASTI will always stand with the marginalised, both in our schools and in our society. Indeed, our bona fides regarding our commitment to advancing the agenda of inclusivity in our schools was enhanced and highlighted when we held an ASTI Equality Conference last November on that theme. The challenges faced by schools in addressing inequalities for students and the need for additional resources to tackle the issue were well summed up by President when you told that conference that school communities are embracing the values of inclusivity and they require significant investment and supports to address the effects of socio-political shifts, wars and conflicts, emerging youth mental health issues, and enduring inequalities in a rapidly changing world. I should also mention in passing that the conference heard from Dr. Richard Hogan on adolescent boys and harmful ideas about masculinity, Megan Berry on members of the travelling community in our school, and Nicola Began on dealing with dyslexia and neurodiversity in the classroom. The breadth and depth of input shows that we in the ASTI will never shirk our responsibilities as teachers and as trade unionists in tackling the tough issues and issues of concern to the marginalised. And I commend the work of the Equality Committee in that regard. One issue that the ASTI has been active and vocal on for many years is the safety, health and welfare of teachers and the wider school communities alike. And we heard a very interesting and well-prepared debate and a report there this morning. Thankfully, while schools are generally great places to work, from time to time difficult situations can and do arise. It's infrequent, but unfortunately on rare occasions, teachers get assaulted in their school. As I say, it is a very small number of instances, but a sad fact of life. ASTI has been demanding that the Department of Education broaden the definition of assault in the circular letter for quite some time now. It is no longer acceptable that assault is so narrowly defined that you nearly have to show the war wounds and the bruises to qualify for assault leave. The concept of psychosocial injury hasn't yet arrived in the consciousness of the Department of Education. The psychosocial effects of an assault in the course of a teacher's duties and during approved school activities can be devastating. This must change. I now want to turn to the amalgamation discussions between ourselves and the TUI. The annual conferences of the ASTI and the TUI 2024 saw the launch of a survey of members regarding the prospect of amalgamation of the two unions. The survey ran from Wednesday the 10th of April to Thursday the 25th of April in 2024. The survey asked if members are in favour of forming one single education union representing members in the post-primary, further adult and higher education sectors. It also asked if members support continuing the work towards amalgamation. On the 26th of April 2024, the results of the survey were published. In the survey, members of both the ASTI and the TUI stated that they are in favour of unity in principle and that amalgamation talks should continue. The results of this survey provided a clear indication of sentiment, no more, on the broad issue of unity and also indicated desire for one union with one coherent voice. It's no more than that. The next stage of the process is requiring extensive discussions, and both unions have been engaging with each other in that regard. As has been repeatedly stated, both memberships and the staff working in each union will be consulted throughout the process. Any final proposals will be decided upon by ballots of memberships of both unions. It is impossible to predict when said proposals will be ready, quite frankly. Since the outcome of the survey emerged, there have been meetings between the parties, and work is continuing to seek to draft a potential rulebook for a potential amalgamated union. However, the sheer volume of work that is being absorbed in both unions, particularly related to the senior cycle redevelopment issue, has meant that the project has been pushed aside somewhat, in truth, and progress is very slow. In truth, little has been achieved yet. But convention, of course, it is our clear intention to keep the membership of each of the arms of our executive fully updated at every significant juncture. I now want to address the current public service agreement, which you know continues to run until June 2026. ASTI members voted by a large margin to accept the terms of the Public Service Agreement 24-26. It was also ratified and accepted by the Public Services Committee of the ICTU. Circular letters setting out the revision of teacher salaries under the agreement have been issued, and we await the further salary uplifts of 1% with effect from the 1st of August 2025, 1% or €500, whichever is greater, with effect from the 1st of February 2026, and 1% with effect from the 1st of June 2026. Chapter 4 of that agreement provided for local bargaining. Under the bargaining arrangements, employers and trade unions may negotiate additional changes in rates of pay and/or conditions of employment up to a maximum of 3% of the basic pay cost, inclusive of allowances in the nature of pay of the particular group or category of employee or bargaining unit. This may include proposals involving changes in structures, work practices, and other conditions of services. I mentioned yesterday that we are seeking clarity on how the current negotiations regarding senior cycle fits into this particular process and the inevitable asks that will be advanced to us as part of the process. Detailed arrangements for the local bargaining units were set out as to be agreed between the parties by the 30th of June last year, and in that regard, the ASTI, together with the TUI, were established to be a local bargaining unit for the process under the agreement. The agreement goes on to state that local negotiations within sectors concerning proposals will take place between July 24 and June 2025. The parties will endeavour to the greatest possible extent to reach agreement through direct negotiation, and implementation of adjustments will be on a phased basis, the first instalment equivalent to 1% of the basic pay cost to be implemented on the 1st of September 2025, and the balance to be addressed in a successor pay agreement. Now, I can say that progress in the wider context regarding the implementation of the provisions relating to local bargaining has been extremely limited. However, it is worth recalling that CEC adopted a motion in February 2024 which stated that the ASTI shall not accept a local bargaining offer as part of the public service agreement without a ballot of members. It is regrettable that right across the public service, negotiations and all of this is still in an embryonic stage. Hopefully we will see intensification on this very shortly, and as I say, our current discussions regarding senior cycle redevelopment may become relevant here. But I will say that the clear and strong feeling I am picking up from ASTI members is that whatever the outcome is that it will be achieved, it should be applied to all our members equally. I now want to turn to the outstanding business of sectoral bargaining in the previous public sector agreement, Building Momentum Agreement, remember that. You'll recall that the sectoral bargaining aspect of the Building Momentum Agreement, ASTI and TUI allocated approximately 2/3 of the 1% available to resolve the payment of the PME allowance to new entrant teachers. The remainder, equating to a figure of about €6 to €7 million, remains to be disbursed. The latest position is essentially as follows. ASTI and TUI representatives met with the Department of Education on the 31st of August 2023 regarding that sectoral bargaining claim, with a view to making a proposal to resolve the issue for some ASTI members who had their increments frozen in the 2016-17 dispute. Prior to that meeting, the Department of Education provided costings in that regard. I won't go into the minutiae of the detail, but essentially after much delay, in May 2024, the Department of Education informed ASTI that it would not be approving or be approved by the Department of Expenditure and Public Reform, or Public and whatever they're calling themselves nowadays. They're not even calling themselves the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and I just got used to that, actually. Essentially, from their point of view, it did not fit the sectoral bargaining model for the fund and how it should work. They argued that our proposal involved upfront costs to be recouped over several years. So thereafter, the ASTI and the TUI met to consider the next steps, and we submitted a further following proposal to the department, where basically we said that the ASTI proposed that the outstanding sectoral bargaining fund be allocated as a general pay and pension increase to all our members. This increase should apply to all points on the scale for post-2011 scale entrants and to all points on the scale, including all allowances for pre-2011 entrants. The increase should be inclusive of all percentage pay increases applied since February 2022. Obviously, we also requested that arrangements are put in place to provide appropriate back payments in a timely fashion to all serving post-primary teachers regarding the period between the 1st of February and to date. The current position is that the Department of Education have informed us that they are agreeable to this being paid, including payment of arrears. Just a few weeks ago, they put a proposal on how this might be paid. We have submitted a request for detailed clarification on aspects of their proposal, but we've been adamant about one thing. ASTI's requirement is that the outstanding payments, both in the form of enhanced pay going forward and back payments owed, should be paid promptly and properly calculated in each individual case. So we await developments, but this needs to be concluded soon. It's gone on too long. Convention, perhaps the largest bugbear issue we have here in the ASTI for many years has been the dreaded Croke Park hours. Last year, you adopted a motion that stated, and I quote, that the ASTI ballot members with a view to taking industrial action up to and including strike action if the unpaid 33 Croke Park hours are not terminated before the beginning of the 25-26 school year. I'm happy to report some limited progress in that regard during the current year. Strong pressure we applied on foot of that motion led to the opening of discussions on review of the usage of the Croke Park hours. I know that review is more likely to secure change in the complexion of the hours rather than the termination mandated within the motion that I've just quoted. The terms of reference state that it is intended that the review will have regard to teacher professional judgment, system and school requirements, and experience to date of best practice in utilisation of the hours. Drawing on good practice, the review will make recommendation to optimise the most professional and valuable usage of the additional hours by teachers. The effectiveness and value of the current arrangements for use of the additional hours, including features of current good practice in that regard, Any future recommendations to be already agreed to maximum period available for planning and development work on other than a whole school basis, and potential recommendations for any further changes that would optimise the most professional and valuable usage of the available time, having regard to the objectives of the review. That work is now underway, and we will see what outcome it will bring. I referred earlier to the work we do in the area of research and our work in producing advisory materials for our members. And of course that's important, but I cannot but reference the day-to-day work we do on behalf of members to protect their terms and conditions of employment. In particular, I would like to turn my attention to the situation in a school where the teachers and the rest of the school community have been treated disgracefully by their patron. I am, of course, talking about Sing Street CBS. I'm sure you're aware the school's patron, the Edmund Rice Schools Trust, unilaterally took the decision to transition the school from being a boys' school, where tuition was through the medium of English, to a co-educational Gael Colostia. The decision was taken without any consultation with the teachers or parents of the students in the school, and throughout the process they have continually been kept in the dark. This is no way to treat a dedicated and professional staff who have created a warm and caring school environment for the children placed in their care. Erst, they should be ashamed of themselves, quite frankly. Absolutely. I must emphasise that the asti and our members in Sing Street have no objection to the establishment of a Gael Colostia in South Inner Dublin City. This is simply not the way to go about it. At this stage, it's not too late to postpone any decision about the school's future and to begin a proper and meaningful process of consultation with the teachers and the wider school community. I call on the department and the patron to do so immediately. I'm delighted that we have staff here from Sing Street CBS, and they're here today as delegates at annual convention. And you know, I once heard it said that solidarity is gold for the soul. And I know I can assure you that you have the full solidarity of ASTI Annual Convention and the entire ASTI membership of ASTI at your back. As I end this report, it's always useful to reflect. ASTI stands in rude health. Yesterday, the Honorary Treasurer presented a healthy balance sheet, the product of a clean audit of our finances. Later this week, you'll hear from our membership numbers here at our 103rd Annual Convention, and that they're at an all-time record high, smashing the 20,000 barrier in fine style for the very first time. I want to pay tribute to our outgoing Honorary Treasurer and our outgoing Honorary National Organiser in respect of both matters, and in respect of our membership growth. But, you know, I've been a former Honorary National Organiser myself, and I know Michael knows, and I know the next Honorary National Organiser will know, that the lifeblood of our organising and our organiser are our school stewards. And I particularly want to single them out because I think they deserve a very special thanks here today. And just a small reflection on the membership numbers. I'm wondering, how do I say this diplomatically? Well, good Lord. Alex Ferguson of Manchester United fame described the emergence of Manchester City as a major force in football as the noisy neighbours once upon a time. And ASTI, unfortunately, had a visit from a version of the noisy neighbours 9 or 10 years ago when we were knocked off our perch as the biggest of the unions in the second level sector for reasons that have been well rehearsed previously, and we won't say any more on that. Well, I have news for you this morning, and I want you to keep it to yourselves, if you will. Maybe I should whisper it. But with our record number of 20,212 members, I have good reason to believe that we can see the noisy neighbours in the rear view mirror again. Today, our union has never been stronger, despite everything that has been thrown at us over a long period. Our members know that being in the ASTI helps win better terms and conditions. Being in the ASTI gives members a real voice at work. The recent DCU survey that found that 84% of teachers are experiencing burnout and 42% will leave or are thinking of leaving the profession shows that being in a strong and unified union has never been more important. Solidarity, quite frankly, is the glue that binds us. There's a musical running in Broadway called SUFs, and it's about a movement to win women's right to vote. And the lyrics from one of the songs called Keep Marching are as follows. Progress is possible, not guaranteed. It will only be made if we keep marching. The future demands that we fight for it now. It will only be ours if we keep marching. I put it to you, Convention, a luta continua, the struggle continues. Let's keep marching. Thank you.